Superman. There isn't a person living on the planet that doesn't know the name. He was created in 1933 by two teenagers, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and made his first public appearance in 1938 in Action Comics #1. In the 80 years that the character has existed, there have been numerous adaptations of his stories in other media outside of comics. His first screen appearance was in 1941 in the first of a series of theatrical animated shorts produced by Fleischer Studios, the same studio that made the early Popeye and Betty Boop cartoons. His first live-action appearance was in 1948 in a series of theatrical serials produced by Columbia Pictures. He was portrayed physically for the first time by actor Kirk Allen. A few years later, Superman was adapted to the small screen in the form of The Adventures of Superman, starring George Reeves as the title character. For years to come, this would be, to the general public at least, the most accessible and recognizable version of the character. That all changed in 1978 when the world was given Superman the movie. With a big budget, a visionary director, a respect for the source material, and an overall love for the character, this film became for a generation, as well as many after, the definitive version of Superman. It was beautifully written, marvelously directed, and for the first time brought a sense of cinematic epicness to the Man of Steel. This portrayal is, in my opinion, the greatest adaptation of the character. There are many reasons why this is, but the biggest one is the actor they chose to wear the cape, Christopher Reeve. Please enjoy this analysis of Christopher Reeve's iconic and game-changing performance as the Man of Steel in Superman the movie. There are certain portrayals of characters in film that simply can never be bested. For one reason or the other, they hit such a sweet spot with their performance that there's simply no way that anybody else could ever possibly bring something better to the table. Actors that are so good in the role that, when on screen, they disappear and you only see the character. You have your Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch, Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and, with this, Christopher Reeve as Superman. Reeve is so good in this role that when he's on screen, you forget he's not really Superman. That's something that no other portrayal has ever been able to accomplish. There are a few reasons why I think this. One is his physical comfortability. Chris moves with such grace and ease in this film. When he's flying, when he's walking, at every point in this film, you buy him in the suit. The subtle things are my favorite, like this moment during his interview with Lois when he sits down. His cape flips up on his arm and he tosses it aside so casually. He's very at home in this suit, and that is apparent in his performance. The same cannot be said for George Reeves or Henry Cavill's performance in the newer films. George's costume was very padded and didn't look natural on him at all. And although I really feel that Henry is trying his best, he doesn't seem like he's fully comfortable either. When he walks, it's very stiff. Some of that might be due to his bulkiness or the material that the suit is made of, but regardless, he still doesn't even come close to matching the relaxed naturalness that Chris had while in costume. Just a quick side note, that courthouse scene in Batman v Superman was horrendous. Superman, the man of tomorrow, the friend to all mankind, utters not a single word during the whole scene. Not a good afternoon, not even a hello to anybody. Dead silence during the entire sequence. This scene and many others in that film really just shows you how little the filmmakers understand the character. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Another wonderful part of Chris's performance is how differently he plays Clark Kent and Superman. It really makes you understand that the disguise isn't necessarily the glasses, it's his mannerisms, his body language. As Clark, he hunches, he stutters, he speaks very rapidly and nervously, he becomes clumsy. When I watch the film, I honestly forget that Clark and Superman are the same person. Obviously, I know they are, but while you're watching it, you truly honestly find yourself forgetting that when Clark is on screen, you're actually looking at Superman, and vice versa. His performance is that convincing. Compare that to pretty much any other adaptation. Clark is basically exactly the same as Superman, but with glasses. I don't mean to keep ragging on Henry Cavill, but he plays both identities exactly the same way. With Chris's performance, you buy the disguise. In real life, Christopher Reeve was a licensed pilot, so he had a great knowledge of aviation. This helped immensely with his flying scenes. His knowledge of aerodynamics helped make his movements during those scenes look and feel much more realistic. Also, when Chris's version of Superman is either taking off or landing, he does so with elegance. He makes it look so natural, like he does it all the time, which of course Superman does. Take the moment when he lands on Lois's porch, or when he takes off away from the prison at the very end of the film. Compare that to Henry Cavill's flying scenes in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I like to call Henry's version of Superman the superhuman rocket. He literally blasts off every time he flies. Superman is a graceful character. When he's on screen, he's meant to have a sense of both majesty and friendliness. That leads me into my next point, the attitude. If there's one word that describes Superman, it's friendly. He's an altruistic, polite person who cares for everyone and treats everyone with dignity and respect. Chris portrays that brilliantly. This is mostly due to the fact that, by all accounts, Chris was a great person in real life as well. Interviews from cast and crew that worked with him all agree that Christopher Reeve was an incredibly humble and genuinely nice person, so stepping into the role of Superman was completely natural for him. Chris and the writers of the film truly understood Superman, and there are tons of examples in the film that show it. Just after dropping off a criminal to a police officer, Superman makes sure to address the officer by name.
Good evening, Officer Mooney.
When he's interviewed by Lois and he helps her with her chair.
Oh, thank you.
When he saves the cat out of the tree for the little girl.
Come on. It's all right. Here you go, miss.
Gee, thanks, mister.
And, maybe my personal favorite moment out of the entire movie, the final interaction between Superman and the prison warden.
This country is safe against Superman, thanks to you.
No, sir. Don't thank me, Warden. We're all part of the same team. Night.
At this point in the film, Superman had just saved California from falling off into the ocean and had stopped a nuclear bomb from blowing up Hackensack, New Jersey. Yet he asks for no thanks. He is what is essentially a god that thinks of himself as no different and no more special than anybody else. He's just doing what he can to help because he knows that it's the right thing to do. That is what the character is all about, and Christopher Reeve translated that to the screen without flaw. Harlan Ellison once said of Superman, quote, "He is the 20th century archetype of mankind at its finest. He is courage and humanity, steadfastness and decency, responsibility and ethic. He is our universal longing for perfection, for wisdom and power used in the service of the human race. Of all the literary creations of American fiction, Superman, after all these years, born of a dispensable, disreputable genre, is the only one that seems certain to get posterity's nod, and that is because, simply put, he is our highest aspirations in human form." Close quote. Christopher Reeve's performance in Superman embodies all of that and more. His comfortability as the character, his convincing double identity, as well as his natural physicality and true understanding of Superman's values, set him above all others who have taken on the role. For many, he is Superman, and when you watch the last moments of the film, as he rises high above the earth just as the sun itself does in the distance, and he gives that warm, comforting smile to the audience, it's really hard not to agree.